Yeah.
All right, let's do it. They announced the Crown of Sorrow raid is going to happen on Tuesday, June 4th.
The day
at 4 p.m. Pacific time.
The same day as the season.
Yes.
Boom.
Yes.
Back to
So
back.
reset's going to happen at 10 a.m. You're going to have till 4 a.m. to grind as high as you can, and then you're going to jump into the raid.
Yeah. You basically got 6 hours from the time that the new content drops to the raid. So the raid race is going to be on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And recommended power?
7:15.
For the first encounter.
First encounter, right? So,
oh, did they say? Oh, yeah, for the first encounter. Uh-oh.
This is going to
be
get
lucky with drops.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of RNG screwing people that day.
It's going to be a tough one, right? They've made certain changes to the way you can level up too.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Wish and Scourge of the Past will be unavailable until Crown of Sorrows has been beaten. So you can't even go into the previous 2 raids until the Crown of Sorrows is beaten.
Right, and also
just prevents players with stashes of ethereal keys from having a leg up in the raid.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the reason they're doing that is because there's been issues in the past with people saving that stuff up, so they get a huge leg up with light level boosting. And so their solution to prevent this is that you just can't even go into those raids.
Just can't go in there, nerds.
Yeah, just
that's right.
They cut that off completely until it's done.
It's the same how they fixed the Iron Banner hoarding of the power bounties. Like you can't cash those in there. Well, and they said that about bounties too, I think, and you're right, that they're capped at 700.
Yep, capped at 700.
Yeah, bounties are capped to the season that you got them in. So anything you're doing, it sounds like almost anything you're doing right now, aside from saving exotic weapons to like turn in like from their quests, that's like the only thing I can really think of off the top of my head.
Right.
Prime attunements will be reset to 2 charges per character on day 1, so you can only get 2 prime engrams on day 1
per character. But you only have 6 hours.
But you only got 6 hours anyway. You're only going to be working on 1.
If you're trying to do worlds first anyway. But
yeah. While characters build prime attunement charges over time, this is just more about that. All level 50 characters can earn prime engrams after signing in and playing during the season of opulence. Players may continue to build prime attunements over the time after the reset occurs. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be a hardcore raid race, guys.
Yeah.
I'm super passionate about this topic, so I want to ask the question to all you guys because I never got to have this conversation with you. I was at Fireteam Chat at the time, and I was
never heard of it.
Furious. Me neither. I just read it on Twitter. I was upset anyway because I have, had my full-time job, was very busy, and it was so unrealistic for me to grind up to Last Wish. It was just so unrealistic. I had calculated some 10 hours a day maybe for, I forget if it was for 10 days or 7 days or whatever. So I felt really left out, and I got into a big heated debate about when should raids drop. I see the conversation continue to happen about some people say, you know what, the world's first and the trophy should go to the people who grind the most. So if you can play 120 hours, then that should go to you. Then there's the other people who are like, how is that fair? I have a family and I got a full-time job and so on and so on. This is the first time that they've dropped a raid. I forget.
They did it for Crota.
Crota happened.
Oh, and Crota. Yeah. Crota was the same day as well, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Crota was literally the rate or the DLC launched and we were raiding it like midnight when it launched.
What? Was it the same power level and stuff? I can't.
Yes, it was launched.
It was. To be fair, Crota was like 20 minutes of content, right?
Oh, day 1 it wasn't.
Yeah,
day 1 I think it was like 3 hours until the raid was cleared. Something like that.
3 hours.
And the only reason it was it was very short for Crota's End because they had the team that beat it had someone else come in to be sword bearer that had been just playing and leveling naturally.
That's right.
Was it 3 hours? I thought like people got straight up locked, and then the first person that they had that hit 31. Because the reason why Crota was like that was that if you had only people that were level 30 on your team, there was no way that you could actually complete it. You had to have at least one level 31 on your team in Crota.
That's what I thought exactly.
To be the
sword. But anyway, first things first. By the way, Morla Gorndona is in chat. She's Eris herself. So hi, Eris. I love Morla. She's great. A friend of mine. But
she's
that
also
aside,
from New Orleans, and she can attest.
Oh,
that 15 pounds of crawfish is normal.
Has she ever eaten 15 pounds?
Yeah, we'll find out.
She's from New Orleans, of
a
course.
Normal person
should
going
get her
to a
on
restaurant
sometime.
saying, "I'll take 15 pounds of crawdads, please, and thank you, and pair it with the best wine you got."
But anyway, pair that with a Dixie beer, and you're
Okay,
good.
wait, but let's get back to the raid. So, but where do you guys land on? What is sort of the philosophy? Should it, the way I always put it, should it be inclusive? Do you see it as inclusive or exclusive, depending on how they drop the raid? And what do you think of this one?
So, I don't know. I always see like the argument of, oh, there should be plenty of time given to players to get to the power cap more or less, and
hour.
Yeah, like give it 3 weeks, and everyone's basically on the same even playing field. It gives time for RNG to kind of work out its magic. I don't know. To me, launching the raid at this is the exact same thing, because you had an entire season to basically get a power cap. Everyone's going in at 700. Basically, yes, you have 6 hours to get your light level up, but in the grand scheme of things, there's not a whole lot you can do during that time. There's not a whole lot of prep work due to the way they change bounties and engrams and everything like that.
Somebody will figure it out.
Someone will figure it out.
Be
A
little window opened,
Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So what do you prefer? Are you okay with it this way? I mean, we haven't done it yet, but
yeah, it's hard to say without doing it. Personally, I prefer it this way, because then if your priority is to do the raid and bash your head against it, you can do that. You have the priority. But if you just want to like take an easier time, go in, level up, and then have an easier time in the raid, you can do that as well. My problem has always been like, oh, great, I don't get to actually experience and enjoy the content that comes with a new season or a new expansion, because I'm so focused on playing optimally and grinding and trying to get my light up as much as possible. And it kind of sours the experience for someone who's trying to be optimal specifically for the raid. Well, now the only thing I have to do to basically be optimal is, have a month of prep time to think if there's anything I can possibly do to give myself an edge. And then take care of it during that 6 hours, and then just fucking, all right, now it's up to me and my raid team to not suck.
I kind of agree, Holtzman, that like you're all kind of going in at the same level, but it's like there's a very good chance this is on the Leviathan, right? That this is like that's where the raid will probably be.
Crown of Sorrow, whatever.
That sounds Hyvy, but from my experience, like a lot of they tend to like to do puzzly things with their raids, especially with
early
the first
on,
raid.
There's usually some sort of puzzly type thing that has to.
And like the what was it? The first raid they put out for Destiny 2, it was almost entirely puzzly. You really didn't have to be up too far in level to, like, the dogs didn't really involve much DPS until you got to the very end. It was kind of puzzly. Running the gauntlet was fun. I feel like they might be, it would be nice if they trended this towards, being more of a puzzle solver than it was like a DPSer.
Last Wish and Scourge have not really been that way, though. If you weren't prepared, and them saying first encounter 715 says to me, you're going to expect some pretty tough enemies.
Yeah, do you think it's going to...
They do call it out a little bit in the TWAB here. They say the raid is a challenge geared toward testing a fire team's ability to learn and execute on the mechanics, as well as their ability to overcome enemies and bosses together.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to do it day one. I haven't done a raid since September. So it's not in my cards. So I've always just kind of been like, I'll get there when I get there. I like watching the raid race from afar. So I've been there on those like 12-hour days where you're just banging your head against the raid, trying to do it blind, and not for me.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're going to, if it's going to be 750 max light. So like the raid is going to go up to like 740 or 745 or something.
Yeah.
If that is the case, it could be a multiple day raid race then.
You think?
I don't think it's going to be. I think based on how Scourge went, I think it's going to be another 2 to 6 hour, depending on if things go okay. I mean, you know how these things go. I don't think anybody expected Last Wish to go.
I didn't expect them to get stuck in the Niobe labs for almost 3 days. So
Exactly.
True.
Yeah,
So meaning, I think unless the unknown goes wrong, we normally see with DLC content, that's pretty swift. And again, I don't think that's bad. I think 2 or 6 hours, like for a really good team, by the way. It took me, I was in the top, it was in front. We were racing out, in front. I was doing good for a while without having to DPS a bunch of enemies. And then I got sort of light locked and the team fell apart. But long story short, meaning I went from maybe being able to do it from, a couple hours to it took like, I don't know if it was 11 hours or 13 hours for Scourge, but I thought that balance was pretty fair anyway.
Scourge worked out pretty well.
I really, I just think asking, you guys and Datto or anyone who stays up 20 some hours to try to do something, that's just like.
So I have definite feelings about this. And on one end, it's prestigious. So it makes sense, the people who have been able to set themselves up to put their teams in those positions to be able to do it, to have the grind. It's a prestigious event to be able to take the lead and be able to come out as number one. But on the other hand, I think it's really cool when you see people who just enjoy playing Destiny and have the opportunity to be able to become the potential first team to knock out a raid. Like I kind of miss those Destiny days when it still felt relatively open, and it's become. I feel like it's become more and more like if you're a streamer, you have infinitely more potential to be able to get this at this point.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I like the prestige of it. I like the prestige of it, but I miss the days that anybody could be a wild card that could come out that isn't technically a full-time streamer.
I feel like that's what this addresses, though. Is like everybody's going to have 6 hours, and then they're just going to have to go into the raid.
I don't know though. On a Tuesday,
like assuming you can get the day off from work, you got as much of a choice. You got as much of a chance as a streamer.
I like them giving a heads up though, because with some of the past DLCs recently, it's just been like hasn't been enough to warrant a day off from work. So it's like if you want to do this, at least you have.
Yep.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I think is good about it is they have given a pretty decent amount of heads up where usually they don't in terms of when the raid's gonna release. So if you are someone that maybe does want to tackle it, maybe you can take a day off. Maybe you can take 2 days off. I know it's not the best workaround, but it feels like this is going to be open to more people just because they have announced it so much further ahead. The one thing I do worry about is that for anyone in Europe or basically not in America, this is a terrible time because it launches at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is even for East Coast. If you're looking to stay in there for 5, 6, 7 hours, you're going to be up really late.
Yeah, it's like what, midnight-ish in Europe, and then if you go Australia, actually Australia's morning, isn't it?
Probably be waking up to it.
But that's not asking a lot. I mean, actually 4 p.m. is totally reasonable for Australia. It's more Europe is that normally you'd be going to bed, but now you have to think about pulling an all-nighter. But there you go. Maybe the raid is only, frankly, maybe they're thinking it'll be 2 to 4 hours, which that's not, if you want to do world's first, midnight to 4 a.m., like, that's not asking a lot.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. There's never a perfect time though, right?
Exactly.
You can't do a staggered launch of a raid and expect world first to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like someone's going to get screwed when you launch a raid. It's just it's just the nature of it.
Yeah, and honestly, this does look like the best possible solution. The only issue is that like console kind of gets screwed because of download times. Just a whole bunch of people downloading on PS4. It's most likely going to cost them an hour or two right there of leveling. And then there's this talk of other people who are going to have like 12-man raid teams. So there's a 6-man that goes in, starts clearing everything. And then there's this other 6-man that's leveling while that's happening that can then swap out. And that's essentially what happened with Crota. Again, it starts pushing it further and further away from the excitement of a wild card being able to do it, and now it's becoming more and more like a professional team.
They'd have to change the rules. Like that would have to be on Bungie's side, right? Where it's like it has to be the 6 original members that went in at the beginning in order to qualify for World's First. If you switch anyone out for whatever reason, sorry, but
man, that's
it's
rough.
really rough.
If they don't set those rules ahead of time, then you can't enforce them after.
Exactly.
Yeah. They're what very fast point because I did screw it up. Is I forgot reset is like at 3 a.m. in Australia or whatever it is. So that's the problem. Is the 6 hours to grind is not as fair for that side of the country.
As far as bringing people in, like in the spirit of raid races from other games, that's something that's also completely normal. Is having people waiting in the wings, ready to come in, either when your team is too tired and you need to keep doing attempts, or when you have people leveling up, getting better supplies or something. In World of Warcraft, this is just an accepted thing that has been happening since vanilla.
It's the same as finding whatever works best for leveling up fastest. In my opinion, it's like using a strategy to win. If that involves swapping someone out, then that's a strategy to win. That's a team. At that point, it becomes a team sport. And I like if there's no rules, then play to win.
Yeah, I don't mind the swapping teammates in and out so much. I still go back to allowing folks worldwide to be 700 all in the same playing field, and hopefully there's no exploits. Like, I think that's a great thing, but I would bring up the point. I think it works fine for DLC. Like, right, it's just the pace of things. We're not sitting here even thinking about like, oh, but I want something to grind for. It would seem if this was a Forsaken release or Destiny 3, you'd be like, wait, what? The raid is out day one? I think it'd be very odd, but I think it works really well for DLC, but it brings up the question of like, what do you do for a Forsaken or Destiny 3 or whatever? Would you want it to potentially be day one like this, or do you take the Division 2 route? And you say, look, it's going to be in a month, and we want to give everybody time. That's what I'm trying to get from everyone is, do you think people all need to be as equal level as possible in a fair amount of time, or that, oh, sorry, you have to play 7 to 10 hours a day, and that's just that?
For fairness
I'm against
sake,
it. Let me just say that. I'm against the idea that being exclusive.
For fairness sake, I see where you're coming from, and I kind of agree with you. But, like, personally, my favorite time of Destiny is those like short bursts of grind, those 3.5 days where you just play as much Destiny as you can. You're trying to eke out every advantage you can, trying to find every power up you can. Honestly, they're my favorite time to play Destiny. Like, I love it. So to lose that would be a disappointment for me.
I mean, I don't know. I see the benefits to both, but I do like that this style does potentially give access to more players to join the race, and they don't immediately have to say, oh, well, I have to take off of work. I have to take off work a week to even feasibly be able to do this.
Right.
This is brings in more of the community, if anything, because
exactly.
the raid race, if anything, is a community event, in my opinion. Like, Destiny becomes top in the directory on Twitch during the raid race. It just happens because so many people want to either watch it and experience it. People are sharing information via other streams. Like, it is an event.
Yeah. I mean, that, like, just so if you guys don't know, I'm super salty about, obviously I had the full-time job, and I was like, I felt really excluded. I understand what you're saying, Briar, which is there is this feeling in the air of like working so hard and grinding, and I get that, but I don't like that time becomes a factor of skill to a point. In other words, right, like, I guess you had 10 hours a day and you could do it. There's just people who don't. So I just wanted to see a balance there. And so
I'm honestly, I'm with you.
So I like where they're
Fran.
going with this, at least.
I'm with you on that, because I feel somewhat the same way. Because again, I like it when it's more of a community-based type of thing where lots of people can participate, as opposed to a very small percentage that gets to participate to try. Because a lot of people just straight up don't even give it an attempt because they know they're not going to be able to devote 10 hours a day to the grind. Yeah. And so they just mark it off. They're like, well, not even going to attempt it. And I think that's kind of sad, because like the raid race for me isn't really necessarily like a race, but it's like a community event. And not to say that it's not, because obviously it is. A lot of people get involved, and like I said, becomes number one on Twitch. But I feel like it's a spectator thing versus people joining in and getting excited to not get spoiled. I see both sides.
Yeah, no,
I really do.
I could see for me as someone who full-time job and all that, I just want to be able to play it. Like, I don't want to be involved with a raid race. I just want to be able to go in and not really have a ton of things to, like, I don't want to have to dedicate an entire day to doing the thing. in all like cases. Like I'm a busy guy. I would love to just be able to, hook up with my other 5 regular fire team members and be like, all right, we're gonna do this tonight. We've got like a couple hours of free time. That would be great to be able to just jump in and try it. Feeling gear checked has always felt rough in that aspect as someone who plays a little bit more casually.
RNG too.
Yeah.
RNG can screw you pretty bad.
Yeah.
in the game.
Right,
exactly.
that.
Yeah, I got.
Like,
That's what happened in the last Witch. I suffered the what was the drop from the well, but I suffered that glitch and a couple others, and I was just feeling left behind. And then, like, yeah, I felt left behind. So I did like going back to maybe what they were saying in the article with the update. I like the thinking that it is all about, I always describe it as a timepiece, that raids are a timepiece. And that's the cool part, is getting people together to understand what to do, and a little less about, oh, did you grind, 100 hours to be a light level just to get in? Because at the end of the day, even if you look at Last Wish, if you just gave everybody, the light level they needed to get in, it still would have been very hard and complex. And I think that's plenty. I don't need to worry about the other 100 hours as well. I do think you need to earn something. You shouldn't just be able to load up the game and play. And we certainly haven't. If you want to be 700 right now, you've had to do a lot of work, but maybe, not on the first 3 weeks of this release, so I think it's nice. I don't think it works as well for Destiny 3.
It's interesting to me, what does a raid look like if they assume that everybody's going in at the max power level too? Like, how do they change the way they build that? Like, if, let's say they wanted to do the division thing and like delay the release of the raid by a month or two, like, so everybody gets a chance to be max level, to get all the cool gear from a DLC, and then we go into the raid at like max level. Like, how do you build a raid around that? Like, because you're not going to be able to use light level as a
to
block
me,
in progress.
That sets things up to be like even it's more of a gatekeeper to do that, because then you are requiring you to get to end game to get to this, whereas the raid, like, say it's at 715, we don't know what max power is. I think 7, like, we can just assume 750 750 because it's been like a 50 level increase every time. So this means that the raid is now something that's accessible to other people to come in and play. It's like, oh, I can go play this, maybe it'll help me level up to get to end game. When you suddenly have the raid be at end game right there, then to someone who just wants to come in and play, it's like, oh, well, I'm never going to get to do that because I'm going to have to invest like 3 weeks of my playtime to get up to max level and then go learn the encounters. And by then, people aren't going to want me into the groups because I haven't actually done it yet. I didn't play that much at the start.
You ain't got an emblem that says you completed it 10 times already.
Yeah, exactly. So, while I do understand that argument of, what happens if we just let everyone, have time to get up to that, that's basically what this one is doing. It's the exact same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I find so interesting about it, though. Like, again, I appreciate the dedication and the time it takes, and there's some glory and prestige in that, as everyone has said. But from a design standpoint, I'm just like, yeah, like, make it difficult. If everybody's 700, then just scale it. So each thing is equally difficult. In other words, don't worry about the people who are 690. Don't worry about, because that's not it. The entry point, they should think about being around 705 or whatever for this, and that's that. I don't know why it's more complicated than that.
We also used to basically have that, where we would have normal mode that would be at like a lower level, and then heroic would launch later, and it would be like everything was at max level, and it was supposed to indicate a harder challenge. But they've kind of gotten rid of.
I'll be honest, I missed
versions.
that. I missed the heroic days, because those were, and that became the raid that you played whenever you raid.
Yeah.
I think that's the other scary thing, is so much development time is spent on basically making 2 versions of the raid, and then one's just dropped by a large portion of the community.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, True. That's a good point. But, well, okay, so it doesn't sound like anybody's against the day one raid or giving people time.
I think it'll be interesting. Like a lot of people have said, it's much harder for people to dedicate 3 to 10 days grinding to the right level than I'm going to take off, 2 days of work. I'm going to go for it. I think that it makes it more accessible. It's never going to be fully accessible, I don't think, when it's something like a raid.
Yeah, it shouldn't be easy. I think that's the often misunderstood part of the conversation. I've run into it when I'm saying these things. People are like, well, it's not supposed to be easy. I'm like, I don't want it to be easy. I just want it to be accessible. And like, meaning when I'm going in at whatever, if I got light locked at 640 because that's what was happening before this and got some med drops, or I didn't play 10 hours a day, that just sucks.
Getting sneezed on by a thrall isn't fun difficulty, right?
No, exactly.
Agreed.
It's all about the timepiece for me. You know, it's a watch, and you all got to play your part. And that's what I've always loved about the raid.
So
it's less about the power.
As much as I hate speculating, this is one of the kind of interesting times to speculate. We know that the raid is launching day 1, and it's at 715 power level. Like, we don't really know much.
Recommended.
Recommended
First
750.
encounter.
First encounter
Is like
recommended.
is like the final encounter going to be at 750? Are people just going to be fucked? Is it going to be at max level? And also, what does that mean for like end game, like the end game of this season?
Right.
You know, is there going to be an activity that actually promotes you being at? Is there going to be something that pushes you to actually get to?
Yeah,
that
like
6-man
YB
activity.
750 or whatever, maybe.
Yeah, if the raid, if
yeah.
the first encounter is geared at 715, you know, okay, is it supposed to be completable day 1? Well, that means that it would have to like be the end encounter would have to be a lower level, you know.
Yeah, you might be looking at something closer to 630, 640, then going all the way to 7, then going all the way to 750.
Wait, how did what was Last Wish's entrance?
5. It is about a
That was
40. Is like 40 or 50, I think.
It had a big
right
spread.
level difference.
So couldn't they do that
Riven
again?
was at 580.
I think this is going to be closer to Scourge, though. Right? I mean, isn't the last encounter of Scourge 640? Or is it 650? What? It's
640.
Man, I don't even
One of
remember.
those 680.
of Scourge?
Oh, 680.
No, Scourge was 650.
I can't remember.
It capped out at 650 on Scourge.
But they've done, in other words, they've still done, you know, a 40 or 50 plus by the end of. And you do have time, like we do have the 6 hours ahead of time. There's gonna be a lot of power on the map. We don't know what that is. Well, that's actually an interesting question. Do we think power on the map is gonna change with Season of the Opulence? Like, did they announce anything that comes along with this? Like, is there gonna be a new adventure? We don't know. There probably is.
I can't remember what the roadmap said.
But Tev's brought up the good point for related to this. They are eventually going to have the new 6-person mode, right? And maybe that's the reason to be 750. So that's a good point, Tev.
Maybe that's the end game activity.
Yeah, this whole secret about Penumbra and more secrets and stuff and things going on. I hope that's an interesting end game loop. Historically, it's been you do the raid, you have these big epic moments, and then if you need to collect something else, you go and collect it, but otherwise you drop it or you play PvP or something. I hope that starts to change with Penumbra. And if not with Penumbra, I hope it changes in the future Destiny, because I would like more in-game gameplay loop activities that are more engaging and keep you going. Because, like I said, I like these moments that you get from Destiny. The big raid moment, you clear it for the first time. It's exciting. Like this week with the Outbreak Perfected. These are big hallmark moments of what a Destiny player feels. But then the long term, that horizontal progression is usually Sahara Desert dry.
So there is supposed to be a new 6. I'm just looking at the roadmap. That one that actually says Season of Opulence on it, because I guess that's the most recent. Power increase, new vanity rewards, new weapons gear. So new raid, and then right under that is new 6-player match-made activity. So there's
That's what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
So
I think that it makes sense that
6v6.
I think the raid will
6v6
presumably if it's 750, 6v6 trials. If it's 750, I think the raid will still drop end game gear.
Right.
But
I mean,
and it'll become easier for all us to do, but then there'll be this one other activity. Did it look like that could be as soon as June, Holtzman, or is it not clear?
It's in the same column as everything else in the start, so it
stuff?
sounds like probably June.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Is that wouldn't surprise me if that comes a week later because they need like beats. But I don't.
It wouldn't surprise me if it came like day 1, because realistically, getting 15 light levels in 4 to 6 hours, that's a stretch.
But does it have to be this new activity, or maybe they just drop? I don't know. Like that's why I was wondering. Do we think they'll just drop some new adventure type stuff? Like we saw that with Scourge. I guess was it adventures so much as the quests, bounty quests, I guess, or what was it that we had to do? Remember where you just go through all the same parts of the world and there's tripwires and stuff? And,
the forges you're talking about?
Unlock the forges. Yeah, you were unlocking forges, but they were. I guess they were bounty quests versus
right. Captain bounties.
But you went back to some adventures, but I mean, I would expect that as well on top of this. But something to explain, like why are we going back to? Presumably, I think it's Leviathan 2 because it's called Opulence, and we saw in the last Vidoc when Luke or whoever on stream was talking about it, when they mention Opulence, they show B-roll of seemingly something pretty opulent Leviathan looking.
Mm-hmm.
And on the TWAB as well, there's all of the like callus kind of art on there when it's talking about the raid and Season of Opulence and stuff.
Oh yeah, the banner's literally the cup. For raid ready is literally the cup from Callus. Pretty much.
I hope it's curveball. Actually, I want them to be like, yeah, you think it's Callus in the that place, and then
if I had to put money on it, it's the hive infecting the Leviathan.
What if it's the Dorito ships that have?
I think
honestly, I don't want them to bring that in one of these DLCs. I would be disappointed if they did that. But if they brought back like the Dreadnought, all misshapen from like a big hole it's been blown out of or something, I'd be actually wait. It already had a hole blown out of it. Just bring the Dreadnought back.
I'm not good with lore, so I can't speculate why.